heard you talk about the D.C. area earlier. Did you grow up there?
No. So I spent a lot of time in
in,
D.C.
in
Yeah,
Radford,
I spent a lot of time in D.C. A
Okay.
lot of time in D.C. And then
School?
so originally first I got family in D.C. as
undergraduate, I
well.
guess? Okay.
So undergrad, Winston-Salem State
Right.
University.
Yeah.
I joined Teach for America. So I
Okay.
taught 2 years in Charlotte, North Carolina, 6th and 7th grade math and science.
What did you think about that experience, Teachers for America? I have, my girlfriend now was a teacher at Forest View, first grade teacher, for 3 years, and she went through Elon's program, but she has strong feelings about Teachers for America. I won't put her on blast.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have strong feelings.
Okay.
I was the first person ever chosen from Winston-Salem State University to join it,
Okay.
and I didn't want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it at all. I come from like poverty,
Yeah.
so and I had great job offers. But when I had started a mentoring program at a university with kids, and one of my good friends at State was like, I mean, we grew up together. We was thick as thieves, and he was like, "Man, you gotta apply for Teach for America." So I applied, and I was like, "Okay, yeah," but I was on my way. I was gonna go to take one of these jobs that was offering me great salary coming out of college, study for LSAT, go to law school. That was the plan.
Yeah.
And I applied and I got in, and I was like, man, I don't care. I'm not going. Thanks for letting me, get in. And I mean, it was just an amazing honor. When I applied, I think 28,000 people applied,
Okay.
and we let in 3,400. So it was like exceptionally difficult to get in. And then I never forget my director of career services. She just came and called me, and she was like, "Yo, you have to do this." She's like, "You're the first person to ever get chosen from my university," and and I love Winston. It changed my life. So I was like, okay, and I was a standard bearer, so I did it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done before in my life.
I'm sure.
But it was also like the best and most rewarding job that I've ever had. I missed the classroom. I still work for Teach for America now, full disclosure.
Okay.
But after I went to George Mason University in Arlington, I loved it. Worked on Capitol Hill, doing education policy, just real chill stuff, man. And then I left Capitol Hill, went to a nonprofit doing education and health policy.
Okay.
And then I dropped out.
Okay.
Dropped out of grad school, quit my job, moved back to Winston-Salem, managed President Obama's re-election campaign in 2012.
Okay.
And then I went back, finished grad school, and I was at a very big point in my life. Like, what do you do next?
Yeah.
Working on the campaign taught me I would never again work a job
Yeah.
just for money. I had to believe in what I was doing. Campaign jobs, man, I worked 120 hours a week. It was tough. A lot of people quit, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And I got a call. I had a few jobs offers I was entertaining in D.C., New York, Chicago, Minnesota, and I just got a call from someone in Dallas like, "Hey, this Teach for America. We got this brand new program. You will start our community partnerships program. Never before done. It's very entrepreneurial. What do you think?" I had never lived in Durham. I mean, Dallas.
Yeah, right.
Never even been to Texas before.
Yeah.
I was like, let's do it. So I moved down there sight unseen, and I worked down there for almost 2 years, and I loved it. It was great. It was hard though. It was hard when you think about being an African American man in Dallas, Texas. It was extreme. It was exceptionally hard. I was the only African American on staff my first year, African American male, that is. Coming from D.C., you know how that is, where you see yourself everywhere. A whole lot of articulate people. You dress a certain way. It's like a power city. And then going to Dallas was like the complete opposite. It was a shell shock, man. It was hard. It was hard. But ended up getting married down there to one of my college sweetheart. We've been together since undergrad, and we found out we were with child, and so we wanted to raise our children. We didn't know we were having two. But first we thought it was one. But
Yeah,
we wanted
right.
to raise our children in a place that was home.
Right.
That felt like home. And I was doing a whole lot of work surrounding like social justice work. I've been to Ferguson a few times. Just doing a whole lot of social justice work. And I was like, if I want to do this work, even doing things in Dallas, I was like North Carolina's home. Like North Carolina's where I want to raise my kids, is where my family is located. I'm going to do this work in my home state. So I came home.
Packed up.
Yeah.
And what specifically about Durham kind of called your name versus Charlotte, Greensboro,
Yeah, well, I had
Winston-Salem.
I was entertaining a few offers in Charlotte and in Durham, and to be honest, we wanted to go to a place where when we felt like we could make a change. I knew Teach for America had a somewhat of a strained relationship with DPS. They had just lost their contract with DPS. I read about it. I was like, I'm going into the fire, but I also think it was the job. So what I do now, I'm the director of alumni teacher leadership. So we have about 275 alumni teachers here in the city of Durham, and so Durham, all the way east to like Johnson County, Rocky Mount, Nass, down south, Clinton, and that area. And what I do is I connect them to the social justice movement. I provide them with professional development, values-based leadership work, and like.
And this is through Teachers for
This is
America.
through Teach for America.
Yeah.
So like those are like the role is like exceptionally unique. Once again, never been done before, and I love that entrepreneurial aspect of it. And like I wanted to really, really make a impact and a change back on kids. I miss the classroom and I miss kids. And with this job, I'm always in the classrooms, always talking to teachers, helping them grow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna cut in real quick and introduce us here. This is Sights on the City. I'm Justin Laidlaw. And this is Robert Stevens running for city council. We were just, chatting up about how Robert got here to Durham and his path, his career path and personal path here to the city. And we'll talk a little bit about, what makes him tick and then why he is running for city council. So as you were saying, doing Teachers for America, you're very involved in social justice, in professional development, working with people, trying to make a change. How, city council is it's a pretty big step. It's an important role. And so what is it that kind of set you off to say, this is something that that I need to do, that I'm the right person for, and this is the next step in my path.
Yeah, certainly. I think it had to do a lot with my father. Father's a great man. My mother's a great woman. Both of them were just like outstanding influences in my life.
And was he involved in city government? Your father?
No. My father was a pastor for 35 years.
Okay.
So, in the AME Zion church. So I grew up in the church, and I just saw how he was able to affect change from the pulpit. I think about one thing my dad said to me that just always resonates with me. Two things, really. First is, I would say, Dad, you're getting ready to preach. And my dad would say, son, the greatest sermon I ever preach is the life I lived before I even step in the pulpit. So how he lived his life Monday through Saturday, before he even saw the church, right, was like his testament. So that was important to me. And then my mother and my father both always taught me that, like, when something's wrong, you do something about it. You just do. We don't make a lot of money. My mother, she works at a manufacturing plant. She makes $10 an hour. She ended up raising my two sisters and I on that. How she did it, I don't know. She's an outstanding woman. Everything I am, I owe to her, right? But they taught us. I would see people come to my house and they not have anything. They not have money for gas to get home. My mother would reach down. She'd pull out some money from somewhere. I don't even know where it came from, and give it to them and tell them, don't worry about giving it back to me. I think about my dad, 2011, which is, it's just a big year for me and my family. My dad, we live in the country, and so we were out. My dad was raking the yard. My dad rakes the yard because, and then we burn our leaves because in the country, the city doesn't come and pick up your leaves. You're responsible for it. Right. So my dad was raking the yard, and he rake his yard. My grandfather has a house right beside it. It's a huge plot of land, both of them. And my father rake my grandfather's yard. And he set the leaves on fire, as he always does. And he went in the house to get ready because he had a doctor's appointment. And my dad looked out the window, apparently, and, it's a huge fire. Our yard, wind had came and caught the fire. And our yard was on fire. My grandfather's yard was on fire. So, my dad called my aunt and he yelled 3 words: fire, fire, fire. Then he slammed the phone down and he did what he taught us to do. You do something about it when you see something wrong. So he ran outside, grabbed a water hose, and he tried to put the fire out. And it was to no avail. Fire was huge, man. And the fire began to go. There was a double wide trailer beside my grandfather's house.
Okay.
Fire began to go over there, and my dad went and ran on the door, knocked, and was like, "Hey kids, you need to come out. It's a fire." And the kids didn't really know my father. They didn't know him at all, so they didn't come out.
Okay.
And my dad saw a piece of carpet underneath my grandfather's garage in the carport, and he grabbed it. And my dad stood there and he beat the fire, and he stopped the fire from burning down their house. And like that's the type of man my father was.
That's impressive, yeah.
My father also had a massive heart attack right there, and he died.
Okay.
And I think about that a lot, and I struggle with that for the longest time. Like, you know, my father was a pastor; he was a man of God. Why did he have to die? And then I thought about it, and I realized that, you know, my dad died the same way he lived.
Mm-hmm.
That he saw something that was wrong, and he said, "I'm going to do something about it." And like from that moment on, like I've lived my life like that. That's why I dropped out of college to run President Obama's campaign and work on this campaign, because I saw something wrong in our country. That's why I decided to run for office here in Durham, because we have some fires that need to be put out. 78% of our kids are growing up in poverty. 78%, right? That's huge. We have a terrible affordable housing program. Like, individuals do not have access to affordable housing. I knock on doors. I talk to people. I met a young lady at Duke while I was working the game, and I was handing out flyers, and she was just telling me how, you know, she pays $1,600 a month, and she lives in an extended stay. And I put that out there. You know, I asked her, "Ma'am, can I share your story?" And, you know, I shared it, and people were commenting on my Facebook post, "Wow, she's paying all this money. You know, that's a lot. She must make good money." But I don't think people understand that if you don't have, let's say you made a mistake in your life, right? And you have bad credit, or you've been evicted, or you had doctor's bills, or you had sick children, and you had to make a decision. Do I pay for my bills, or do I make sure that my kid can eat? These are very real decisions people have to make. And, you know, if you have something like that on your record, you have to put down an arm and a leg and a deposit. Or people don't even want to rent to you. So I'm talking to people who don't know where food is going to come from, if they're going to have a roof over their head. And if we have so much development happening in our city, we really have the tale of two Durhams, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. If you look across Roxborough and Mangum, you know, you have like abject poverty, just total poverty. Then you go 2 blocks up the street, you know, you have these high rises downtown.
Right.
And I'm running so that we can bridge that gap.
And you said you've been in Durham for a year now?
Yeah.
And so just in that time, you're able to see the juxtaposition between what you said, the two Durhams,
Yes.
The development that's happening in the greater downtown area, and then the kind of you know, the outskirts, the fringe there, just outside the downtown limits, the disparity between those communities. I'm curious, you know, being kind of a newcomer to Durham, to the city government, how do you feel, to your knowledge, that the city council has done up to this point, and maybe where you stack up compared to some of the other candidates that are running?
Yeah. So I think the city council has certainly put forth some initiatives to address like homelessness and affordable housing in our city. When you look at the penny for housing, that's it's a great idea. And I'm exceptionally proud to live in a city that we can do that. When you look at the work that needs to be done, it's also massive. So I won't say that they haven't done some work. I just think that we haven't done enough. Mm-hmm. And I think that's always the selling point. Like, have you done enough? When you look at the issues that we have in our city, and it's not just about affordable housing. That is one of the big things, but I also care about like police brutality.
Yeah.
Pardon me. I care about police brutality. I think I cut my teeth in the social justice movement surrounding that.
We certainly had our issues with the police department here in the city.
So we're back. You were talking about police brutality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Chief Lopez and the taser incident.
So I think I'm like uniquely positioned to address those concerns. I was arrested here in Durham. I organized and led the protest at South Point Mall, where we took over South Point Mall and we took over Fayetteville Street. And they charged me. You know, they charged me with failure to disperse, inciting a riot, and impeding the flow of traffic. And I learned something when I was in Ferguson. You know, I've been in Ferguson a few times, New York, organizing and leading the protest movement in New York, as well as Baltimore. And when I was in Ferguson, I lost my fear. I was shot in Ferguson by the police with rubber bullets. I was tear gassed. But it taught me, like, you have to stand up for what you believe in. And here in that city of Durham, like you said, you mentioned the taser incident at Harris Teeter, where, you know, apparently the gentleman they said he was suspicious. He looked suspicious. And for the life of me, I can't understand how having a grocery cart full of groceries in a grocery store makes you suspicious. When you talk about, you know, Jesus Huerta and what happened, when you look at Carlos Raleigh, you know, I met his father in the grocery store, and he was like, hey, I want you to help with this case because I know my son didn't do this. You know, these are incidences that are happening in our city. When you look at our racial profiling data, it's worse than the ones in Ferguson. We have to be able to call a spade a spade. And then, like 2 months ago, as soon as the Carlos Raleigh trial was over and they had the Jonathan Ferrell verdict, you know, we held a press conference downtown in front of the Carolina Theater. And I called for Chief Lopez's immediate resignation because I knew that if we were to heal our community and, like, try to attack the complete distrust between the community and our police department, we need a new leadership. And we need new leadership that is focused on, number one, having racial implicit biases test, so that when you join the force, you know, the force knows, the city knows what your biases are. That's important because you may not profess these, but they may happen in your subconscious. That's important to know that. Number two, DEI training. You have to go through diversity, equity, and inclusivity training because diversity isn't just people of color, African Americans. We have LGBT community. Yeah. We have our trans community who have been murdered at an exceptional rate in our city. So those are some of the reforms that we have to put in. We have to continue to make sure that marijuana is decriminalized. When you look at individuals, you look at the Fair Sentencing Act.
You'd be pretty unique with that stance in Durham and especially in North Carolina being a red state.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear you kind of, maybe go further with that. What you think, I mean, on a city level, I don't know how much can be done for decriminalization, but clearly it affects a certain demographic more than it does others.
Yes.
So is your stance on decriminalization kind of a bigger part of the social justice issue? Is that kind of where you're coming from with?
Yeah. When you look at who gets arrested more for having weed, maybe you have a joint or something. When you look at the Fair Sentencing Acts nationally, if you have some crack, you're getting 20, 25 years. If you have cocaine, you may be getting 3 years slap on the wrist probation. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And what we just need lawmakers who are courageous and who are willing to make tough decisions and stand by them because we know what's right.
Right.
Right? So we just need someone to stand by that and make those tough decisions. And it's not easy. And I know I have the advantage of saying these things not being in office. But I ran for office to take stances on issues. And I want people to vote for me because you believe in what I believe in. Not because, I'm part of this organization or I'm part of that organization, but because you see that I'm for the people and I have the correct stances. And these are stances that can help move our city forward.
Cool. So kind of going in a different direction, what has your experience been like in Durham in the year that you've been here? Kind of outside of work, of running for city council, just the city in general. What's your general perception of Durham and what you know about its history, where it's headed, places you like to eat, any of that kind of stuff that kind of makes up your experience in Durham outside of work?
Yeah. So, I love Durham. I
do too.
I think it's like...
That's why I'm still here.
Yeah. It's a very, special place. I'm an avid cyclist, so I cycle all the time. My bike is actually at work now because I jumped on and rode it to work last week. But what I really love to do is ride. I love the ride. I love the Tobacco Trail. I usually ride it jump on at Fayetteville Street and go all the way to Cary. Yeah, so I ride about 40, 50 miles. So that's one thing. I love the King Sandwich Shop. Man,
Okay.
the burgers are the best. I love the Pit. I love the Pit, so I love to eat there. My family and I, we just love to go to the parks as well.
Okay.
One thing, having a kid, especially my two little girls, when they're young, so we can just jump, throw them in a stroller and roll around. Working here in Durham has provided me with an opportunity to see a lot of different neighborhoods because we have a lot of people, a lot of alumni at different schools here in Durham.
Right.
So I drive around a lot, and one thing that I found is I love to give back. So I spend a lot of time at Urban Ministries,
Okay.
feeding the homeless, talking to them, and I think that that's really what has also like guided my platform. So yeah, those are the things that I really like to do here.
What do you think about the bike lanes? Yeah, we were having a conversation with
Yeah, I mean,
Councilman Schul about public transportation, and biking is somewhat included in that conversation often. It's tough out here. I mean, I don't ride my bike as much as I would like, but I know Durham has a pretty big cycling community.
Yeah.
And the bike lanes here, man, they are
they're terrible. We can just
they're
call it what it
dangerous.
is.
Yeah.
It's hard to bike in the city.
Yeah.
I just don't like biking on the streets
Yeah.
because I'm afraid. You know, I've been tapped a few times. It's scary. Yeah, I know when I first moved here, there was a gentleman who was biking, and you know he got killed. He was just
Yeah.
killed biking, and I was like, wow. And my
Vidal.
wife, yep.
Vidal, yeah.
And my wife is, you know, she's exceptionally like concerned about me biking. So I think what we have to do is we have to get more bike lanes here. We have to get more trails so that people can bike on the trails as well. But one thing we have to work on, like our congestion on our roads. When you talk about that road diet that they were prescribing out there at Chapel Hill Street, support that because we got to make sure that we have streets that are paved. We have lanes, sidewalks for people to walk on, and we got to get those bike lanes so that people can bike and feel comfortable and safe.
Infrastructure is a big thing.
It's huge.
One of the major things I think that we don't spend the right amount of attention on citywide, statewide, nationally. Infrastructure can be such a catalyst for other things that you're trying to address. I mean, I know the few times that I have biked, you know, going down Fayetteville or going down Alston Avenue towards my mother's house. I mean, it's the sides of the streets, and then one of the things too is that people aren't, they're not used to cyclists. They're not educated on bike lanes and bikes turning signals, things like that. But then also the shoulders of the roads and the roads themselves are just not built for distance cycling. So yeah, I would like to see us address. It's not the most appealing thing, or not the sexiest thing to talk about, but it certainly is an issue that needs to be addressed and could solve a lot of the problems that we have.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, we'll wrap up here. I don't know if you have any closing remarks that you'd like to say. Again, voting day is November 3rd, so make sure you get out and vote. Early voting has started, so please take the time to do your civic duty and find yourself in a voting line. Again, Robert Stevens, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I think the last thing I would love to say is Robert Stevens, once again, running for Durham City Council. And I'm running because I believe we have two Durhams. I believe that young people want to take on the mantle of leadership. And I believe that we have to bridge the gap. So I've put forth a few policies. One thing that I'm really, really supporting to address affordable housing is let's make sure that we offer incentives to businesses that have workers in there that provide high quality childcare to their workers. And if we do that, what we'll do is free up a lot of money. The study just showed that it costs more to send your kid to daycare than it does to send them to Chapel Hill for a year. And a lot of our middle class families are feeling that pinch. So if we provide incentives to workers, to businesses who employ workers, that they provide high quality childcare on site, individuals won't have to pay upwards of $2,000 a month for childcare. And that money that they were spending on that could go to affordable housing. And in my opinion, that's real change. That's policy decisions that we can make in our city. And that's what I'm about, affecting change for the everyday common guy and gal, so we can win this election and we can change things. So if you believe in those things, if you want Durham to be a city that works for everyone, vote for me so we can change some things. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks again. Again, it's the Sights on the City, Clarion content. You can check us out on our YouTube channel and all our social handles as well. My name is Justin Laidlaw, and we're signing off.